All right, we are streaming live right now. Let's get my man inside here. Let's get Cody inside the room. But before we get Cody inside the room, I want to make sure I have no sound feedback. Cody is coming in the room. Cody, what's going on, bro?
What's up, Marlon? How are you?
I'm doing excellent, man. Dang, the sound is crisp.
Is that actually it?
Yo, very. Got like
That's
the
what I
DJ voice coming through.
Okay. Heck yeah. This is my gaming headset, but I don't actually game, and so it's now my cold calling headset.
Bro, I freaking love it, man. It is like it's so super crisp. And I'm liking the
Sweet.
background, man. You got like I feel like you got like podcast vibes going on.
That's a goal. I'm sure we'll dive into it a little bit during this conversation, but eventually we'll get there. I just got all my like knickknacks and all my memories and stuff like that all on this shelf. So I like to showcase it here and there.
Yeah, I love it, man. It's cool. Like you get to like see people's personalities. And I'm huge on anime, man. Like I watch way more of it than I even like care to admit. So it's
Okay.
just, like when I find out there's like some other anime heads inside, like I'm like, oh yeah, let's go.
Yeah, I like anime a little bit. My little brother's like huge into it, and so I'm starting to get into it more, but I just started watching Yu-Gi-Oh again, and my girlfriend's like, "Oh, again?" And I'm like, "Yes, again.
Yes.
I am going to watch this again."
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that, man. Well, dude, check it out. I do this probably once a year where I'll open up my calendar and it's really for the purpose of seeing how can I help, how can I serve. I like to ask that people that question of like, what can I do to help? Some people have used it for like, hey, real estate problems, mindset problems. Some people are like, hey, I don't even have any problems. I just want to connect and let's kick it. And I'm like, yo, the time is yours. So I would love to know, kind of how you'd like to use this time, man.
Yeah, for sure. I think, in prepping for this call, I think just to give you some context, I joined Sub 2 9 months ago. I haven't done a deal. I there's a lot that goes into it, but I kind of just want to ask a few questions. I think what I'm realizing, and over the last few days, I've been really trying to dive into the back part of my mind that most people don't like to get into, but just figuring out like what's stopping me from doing what I'm trying to do, and how can I get there? And so I prepared, I think, 5 questions for you, and then we can kind of open it up. But I just finished watching your YouTube video last night, and so kind of where a lot of these come from. Is it
I
cool if I
love it.
get started, or I don't know
Yeah,
if you had
Cody,
anything you wanted to add?
Cody, let's jump right into it, man. I love like the preparedness. I really do.
For sure. I mean, I appreciate you opening up this time. I know your time's super valuable, so I would have hated to come in here and be like, "Hey, I don't know what to talk about." So, cool. Well, the first thing is like I graduated college a little over or a little under 2 years ago.
Mhm.
And since during college, I was door-to-door salesman. I sold pest control. And that's actually how I got introduced to real estate. A few of my managers and stuff were collecting rentals, and when they weren't working on pest control during the summertime, they were managing their rentals, like doing the rehabs and stuff themselves. And so it kind of got me excited and kind of built a vision for how I could build wealth for my family. So during that time, I would say I was like super big into personal development. I was like reading every day, I was journaling every day, I was exercising every day, taking cold showers, like pretty much everything that you could be doing. And I felt like my trajectory was on a very much like an upward slope. I was surrounding myself with people that were doing the same things. I was inspiring people to do more. But since graduating college and like jumping into my corporate 9 to 5 career, I feel like all of that has just gone out the window. Like I wake up, have a cup of coffee, start my day, finish my day. I know I want to work on real estate. I know I want to work on other stuff, but I'm like just so emotionally exhausted. I do sales, enterprise high tech software sales.
Oh, cool.
And so I'm just like already exhausted from cold calling and talking to people all day and working my deals and stuff that I just feel like I'm like, dude, I do this all day. I don't want to pick up the phone and call agents, or you know what I mean? But also I'm just starting out my career. I don't have the money to go hire a VA and stuff like that quite yet. So I'm like in this weird limbo ground. But really, I guess my main question is like, do you think it's more important for me to get back in the routine of, working out, reading, going to church, doing the things I need to do for myself personally before working on real estate? Or do you think that I should work those two together? Because the last thing I want is to be on this call next year and still not have taken any action.
100%. And Cody, I love the question, man. I really do. And I think inside you know the answer. And, I'm going to say it out loud, which is you saw that back in college, you started this routine, you started to build rituals for yourself, you started to get into a routine of working out, personal development, things of that nature, and it assisted with everything else you were doing. The answer here is yes, you absolutely want to get back into a routine. And sometimes this happens because the routines that we build, they're not permanent, right? And you learned this during your time of doing personal development. It's very much like taking a shower. You take a shower today, you get clean, you're all nice and smelling good. And as great of a shower as you take today, it doesn't last you into tomorrow. Tomorrow you have to do it again, and the day after you do it again. Similar to eating and drinking water, right? It's only as good as the last time you did it.
For sure.
So with that being the case, recreating a routine for yourself is going to be something that you absolutely want to identify. Now, your time and your scheduling may have shifted. So maybe you're working with new time blocks. Maybe there's you used to be able to do it like at 8 o'clock in the morning. And maybe now it's going to be that you do it at 6 o'clock in the morning. However, finding the space and time to work on you is absolutely critical. You've heard this before, but I'm going to say it again. You've got to learn to work harder on yourself than you do on your job.
Okay, hold on one second. I'm taking notes on this screen over here, so I'm gonna write that down real quick.
Yep.
Do you mind repeating what you said? It's harder.
So you got to learn to work harder on yourself than you do on your job.
That's money, dude.
And so that's going to be something that's vital. And again, it may look different. For example, this morning, I run the daily dial on Wednesday morning. So from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m., I'm running the daily dial. Now, on the other days that I'm not doing that, that time block is around the time I do personal development for myself. I'm reading my books, I'm doing whatever I need to do, I'm meditating, all that good stuff. So since I can't do it during that time, what do you think I do instead? I shift it up.
Find another time to do it.
Yeah, I just wake up earlier.
Okay.
So 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm up and I'm packaging it in beforehand, and then whatever doesn't get done is packaged in the after. So I'm not missing my workouts. I'm not missing working on my mind. I'm not missing my visualization and my meditation, and I'm not missing my planning time to help identify, because what you're going to find is you become strangely loyal to routine and habits that are just put in front of you when you don't create them yourself.
So I 100% recognize that too. I'm like, I know I want to be doing all these things and I want to be doing all of them, but then it's like for some reason it ends up being the last priority because the other stuff are, like you said, being put in front of me.
Yeah, it's human nature. It really is. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just recognizing it so that we can then create on purpose. Because when you were in school, do you remember how the teachers would give you a book report and they would say, hey, you have until the end of the month to write the book report? And lo and behold, it takes the entire month to write the book report. But then when you found out that the book report's due next week and it's like, hey, I got like 3 days to write this book report. Lo and behold, it only took 3 days to write the book report, right? Yep. Things are going to fill to expand and take up the full amount of whatever you give it. So if you're not giving yourself anything to do, all the other things in your life will expand to take up your calendar until you purposefully come inside there and say, no, this is what I'm putting here. And this is what I'm putting here. And this is what I'm putting here.
Okay. Yeah, I like that a lot. And that's a good way to put it. I feel like right now, like I get off at 5, but then like I don't want to work on my other stuff or work on myself because I'm exhausted, like I said. And then what ends up happening is I'll like open up my work computer again and I'm like, why am I doing this? So that absolutely makes sense.
Yep. And it's one thing I'm going to give you a kind of like this warning or like this heads up of what's going to happen is you still have a full schedule and you've been running it and you're going to be tired and you're going to be exhausted because you you're giving your all to work. You're not just showing up to work and like checking out like most people do. You're actually showing up, you're engaging with people, you're in a job where you're compensated off of your performance. So you're going to show up to perform, which is phenomenal. I want to remind you that you have more to give than you even think you're giving. That when you're at your end, you're really only about 60% spent. So you got another 40 in the gas tank. However, getting to that next 40 is going to require you to essentially push through that wall. And the toughest part about that is going to be convincing yourself to start. That's where it's going to be difficult because you're going to convince yourself to start. And when you do start, you're going to be exhausted. You're going to be tired. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, like I feel beat up. I feel drained. I feel like I just ran a marathon. And it's going to feel like that for the first couple of times. And then what you're going to start to find is like strength training. You're going to begin to adapt. You're going to begin to be able to perform and put that sort of output out there. And then this is why like it's so important that you keep yourself around people who can get you to perform like that, right? Like I keep myself around people that they keep moving because then when I want to take a break, they're still going. And so I'm able to see, oh man, I'm sure you probably experienced this. When you work with your sales job, do you ever work in an office, whether it's virtual or in person?
Yeah, I worked virtually.
Cool. When you're virtually, are you guys ever in like a virtual setting though, like together with each other?
Yep.
Or are you all on your own?
Yeah, we're together. We meet like
Cool.
3 times a day.
So have you ever like felt like slowing down and maybe you saw one of your coworkers like still going and you're like, all right, I can make one more call.
For sure. For sure.
Right. So it's the same sort of premise, starting to set yourself up with that, give yourself that sort of environment for your goals. Like create like that sort of campfire and camaraderie for your goals. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's great. I think the other thing too, like, is like being in pest control sales, like you're doing it day in, day out with the same people. And so you have that community, right? And I loved that community aspect of it because everyone was always pushing each other and reading at the same time or eating breakfast together. Like it was like a family, really. But it's like now I'm like, I have my girlfriend and she's great and she does amazing at what she does, but like she's never experienced this kind of journey, right? So I feel like it's just like hard commit, like because I'm around her, it's like, okay, like she's so successful. I'm doing really good at my day job. So you just get comfortable, right? And it's like that comfortability is just like a downfall in a way because it's just like you're like, I'm doing so good. I don't need to do this other stuff. Like I want to do it, but I don't need to do it. So I 100% agree with the keeping myself around people who will get me to perform. How do you recommend doing that in terms of like, obviously with sub two, there's the communities in terms of like accountability groups for taking action in that regard. How would you say, or how would you recommend I go and find that outside of sub two or maybe locally in my community?
So good question. Great question, actually. I would say your vibe attracts your tribe. So with that being the case, right, it would be within whatever communities you're a part of, finding your pack, right? Like finding your clique. It's kind of like going to high school. You still got to go find your friends that you're going to go sit and have lunch with.
Right.
So even inside sub two, when I first got in sub two, I was in like around like 200 people or so. And I was very intentional about actively seeking out the highest performers and going and befriending them. Very, very intentional about that. Because I came from the world of sports. I came from skateboarding, snowboarding, and parkour. And I
Okay.
remembered that when I wanted to get better, what I did was I would go and find the best athletes I could possibly get into a room with, and I'd go hang out and train with them. And so my progression was exponential. I was able to cut the time down. I was able to cut decades down to like days just
Sure.
by simply gaining proximity. So I would do the same thing inside the groups that you're a part of. This is something that you frozen or are you just holding still?
I'm holding still, sorry.
Oh, dang, you bro, you
Maybe
got
I am
some good
frozen on your
muscle.
end.
You got some good muscle control. Okay. So
It's
yeah,
the bald. It does no hair movement. You can never tell what's going on. I'm just
yeah,
kidding.
I was like, wow, he's holding really still. And to your point of like finding the right people, something that I did when it was the beginning of the quarantine and everyone was isolated. a handful of us, we started getting online, like into a virtual office. For the last year and a half, I've ran a community for entrepreneurs to come and work on just their mindset. Like you may have seen it, it was MMC, still is, it still is, it's MMC. And it's entrepreneurs connecting daily to work on their mindset. And every morning, 7 a.m. Eastern, everyone was getting on, working on affirmations, working on reading a book together, doing that kind of stuff so that we can get our day primed and started. And it's continued to evolve to now, like we do evening calls, Monday evenings, and the morning calls still happen, but it's a bonus ran by the community. They run it themselves now to hold each other accountable. So the reason I'm bringing that up is because it was something I wanted, but it wasn't there. I couldn't find it, so I created it.
Mhm.
So if you can't find one that you already resonate with and you're like, hey, these are my people, this is my tribe, create yours. So even in your local market, I also did this. I traveled to Arizona. I saw the way they were meeting up. They were having meetups like every day. Like these people, I thought a meetup was something that happened like once a quarter.
Mhm.
It was literally like happening. There was like 3 different meetups happening every day, and you got to choose which one you wanted to go to. I was like, holy crap, y'all meet up that much? And one of them was my buddy Zach Keeps. He would take people hiking. He would take a bunch of entrepreneurs and they would go hiking on Saturday mornings or Sunday mornings. And I was like, I love this. Like, I'm outdoorsy. I like exercising. Hell yeah. So I came back to New York and I introduced it. I just started telling people like, yo, entrepreneurs, come through, meet up. We're going to go to Bear Mountain and we're going to go hike it in the morning, Sunday morning. And at first it started off with just me and one other person. But I just kept showing up because I enjoyed it. And people started to flock and they started to come to it. And so I was hosting meetups and doing all this stuff. And Cody, here's the coolest part about when I started doing that stuff. How many deals do you think I had closed when I started running these meetups? 0, not a one. I actually started to become an authority in my local marketplace. And all I was doing was just gathering people together selfishly for myself. So I would say find your smaller pack, find your smaller tribe and plug in with them so that you can have those sort of people that are going to help hold you accountable. I actually, even funny enough, last week, I have like a group that I do high performance coaching with, like a small group of entrepreneurs. And last week I made them all, their homework was go and find your personal accountability partners. Like find your person who's going to help you. Like basically it's like your gym buddy, your gym partner that's going to help you keep showing up, because we're just hardwired that way. Humans are hardwired to be communal.
For
So we're
sure.
going to leverage our nature.
That's awesome, man. That's all great. I appreciate it. I'm excited to put this to action. I still got a few questions and I just want to be aware of
Oh,
your
you're
time and
good.
stuff.
I always put down on the calendar 30 minutes, but I leave the other 30 minutes behind it open because sometimes I just know the conversation goes.
For sure. Yeah. I'd like to try to do my best to respect people's time on sales calls and stuff. People may only have like down to the exact minute. So I'm always peeking at the, the time at the end. Cool. My next question is just like around, you mentioned the importance of like writing your goals down. And I used to do that like super heavily. One tool that I actually got and was using for a bit was the Bigger Pockets Brandon Turner Intention Journal.
Oh, cool.
And I really liked it. I don't know if you've gone through it, but I found myself spending like honestly like an hour and a half a day writing in it. And I think that there was a benefit to it. But I think writing the same things over and over again, I see the value in it. But when I'm spending an hour and a half doing it, I felt like it was a bit much. Do you have any tools or anything or any like good planners or journals that you recommend that would help me cut it down? I don't mind like 15, 20 minutes, but being that I want to go to the gym, do all these other things, if I'm spending an hour and a half journaling, that's cutting a lot into my time.
Yeah, 100%. I know the feeling and it's beneficial, but you're absolutely right. When it's cutting into and stealing time from other areas, it's, hey, can we find a happy medium? So something I did this morning, and for the last few mornings, I've been sharing this with like everyone in the daily dial. So we've been having like 130 people on those Zooms.
Sure.
And what we were doing is, were you on any of them or probably busy in the mornings?
I have them marked on my calendar, but I'm in central time. So I'm like right between the daily dials. And it's like right when I'm starting my morning is like right between both times. So
No worries.
I need to go to them though. I recognize it. And I
Yeah,
especially have been wanting to go to the one that you've been leading because I'm like, I recognize that this one would provide me value for sure.
100%. And no worries if you haven't been able to get there. What I did inside the last three is we've been breaking down Robert G. Allen's The Four Maps of Happy, Successful People. So to give you a short version of it, Robert G. Allen, granddaddy of creative financing, super awesome dude. He taught hundreds and thousands of people how to get into real estate, buying properties, no money. Think of Pace Morby before Pace Morby. And
Okay.
what he realized was he was able to teach people and give them all the resources, but a lot of people weren't producing the results. Why? Because of this mindset. So he started to develop a way to help people shift their mindset daily while still not needing to take the entire day to do it by essentially having people draw these four maps every single day. And the maps, what they did was the first map is the clarity map, which helps you clearly identify what it is you desire, where it is you want to go. Like it essentially clarifies your goals for you. Second map is the anticipation map. Anticipation map is a map that helps you to be able to anticipate what you're going to need for this challenge. It helps you anticipate what you're going to need to get to that next level. The third map is the ritual map, helping you to identify your routines that you need to implement. And then the last one is your task map, helping you identify the daily to-dos that need to be done. This all together, the whole process probably, if it's taking you a long time, will be about 45 minutes to an hour. In a short period, it could take you 15 minutes to review these, because the idea is pictures are worth 1,000 words, right? So the idea is you're drawing a map, you're drawing a picture. So his maps and his goal setting, if you will, it's in picture form, because when your mind sees a picture, it fills in the blank, it fills in all the rest of the stuff. So he gets you to draw this picture, he gets you to sign your name to it, to commit to doing it each day. And then the most important part of it is you actually virtualize it. Virtualize is, if you understand visualization, it's visualizing, but incorporating your five senses, right? Really get into it, really smell it, taste it, touch it, see it, hear it. Really put yourself there, because ultimately feeling is the key. When we talk about you become what you think about, it's you become what you think about to the extent that you think it deeply enough that you begin to feel it. And that's when you start to speed the process up. That's how we start to speed. When we talk about manifestation, when we talk about goal setting, when we talk about thinking things into existence, we're talking about getting to the point of feeling it. So virtualizing helps us to feel the process, feel the shift much sooner. So all that to say, the Four Maps of Happy, Successful People, if you haven't ever read that book, I highly recommend that book and leverage what you learn in that book as a way of goal setting.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's really solid. I like the idea of putting it all into pictures too. I mean, it's easy to say, oh, I want like this house. But if you look at that, you're like, dang, like I can feel myself or see myself like actually in that house. It's no longer just like words on paper, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And there's something like I haven't really announced it yet. It's something that it was a project I worked on with a buddy of mine out here, Nico Arapoulos. He created what's called a vision video. And it's really sick and it's really intense. It's actually super cool, where essentially you create, like people have vision boards.
hmm
Imagine a digital vision board that's actually a video, and you create a message to yourself from the future, and you speak to yourself in the present from the future while video is playing, to really get every part of you involved in essentially imagining and seeing your future.
That's pretty
Extremely
cool.
powerful.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Mhm.
That's pretty awesome. Is there like, has that been made public at all or anything? Could I like see what you're talking about?
It's not public yet. I'm working with him right now, because right now the level of detail to make each person's video, it's not scaled yet. So that's
Mhm.
where we're like working through and tweaking that. So I'm helping him with that, but it's probably one of the coolest things. Like I got so crazy excited the first time I saw it. I was like, dude, the world literally needs this.
That's awesome.
So as it starts to get rolled out, I will absolutely be putting it out there for y'all to be able to take a look at it and see.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So my next question kind of revolves around you had mentioned in your YouTube clip the importance of teaching other people and publicly proclaiming what you want to do. And I have some kind of thoughts around this. In my day job, I have other real estate investors and stuff who are in my community, other salespeople. And I tell them a lot, like you said, like your dad did for you, about my knowledge, because being in sub two, I've learned a lot, but I haven't actually done a lot.
Yep.
And so they keep telling me like, dude, you should create a TikTok or you should do something like this. And I want to, and I want to make content because I think that that will also have value in holding myself accountable, like putting that out there. But I think one thing, and I'll be vulnerable, is just like, I'm scared, to be honest. I made some really poor choices in high school and like early college days that like aren't crazy, but I'm just not proud of. And I know I'm not that person anymore, but I would hate for like somebody from my past to get a hold of what I'm trying to do and how I'm trying to progress and like tear me down. And so I think that's like what's stopping me and like in my heart. How do I overcome that?
Great question. So, here's the interesting thing. That thing that you're scared of having come up, the answer is pretty simple. I would actually get in front of it and I would actually put it out there, whatever it is. Whatever it is. Because I've learned a really valuable lesson, which is the truth always comes to light, always. It's just a matter of time. It's not a matter of when, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So if it's eventually going to come up regardless, no matter what I do to try and bury it, I might as well be the one that presents it, and I might as well get it out there. Because once I put it out there, it loses the control and it loses the power over me. And what's really interesting is for you, it will feel big. For other people, you might find that it's not a big deal. For example, I now talk about mindset and personal development. Cody, when I first started learning about this stuff, I was so embarrassed to even when I went to the bookstore, I would kind of walk around and grab other books and kind of put personal development books underneath it because I didn't want people to realize that I felt like I needed to work on myself.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I was extremely embarrassed about it. I wouldn't mention personal development. I wouldn't mention any of that stuff. I wouldn't tell anyone that I listened to Tony Robbins tapes, none of that. And lo and behold, as I finally started to open my mouth about it, one, most people weren't okay, it wasn't that big a deal. And two, the people that I have been able to help because I have opened my mouth and they're like, oh my gosh, me too. I've been going through that as well. We've been able to connect because I shared that vulnerability. See, the low points in our life are what qualify us to help. The things that we are embarrassed of and ashamed of and things of that nature, those are the things that actually qualify us to connect with other people because we don't connect at the top. We don't connect at the peaks. We connect down in the valleys. That's where we're relatable. It's hard to relate to the person who's got it all going on, who's figured everything out, who's got the perfect life. That's a hard person to relate to. I can relate to the person who's fallen flat on their face. I can relate to the person who just has had those moments of feeling like I literally have no idea what to do next. I feel lost in the sauce. I have no sense of direction right now. And I feel like I felt like a loser. So I relate when a person's like, I feel like a loser. I'm like, oh, I know that feeling. Right. That's a feeling I know very intimately. I know that feeling very well. So when you start to share it, you're going to find it releases power over you and you give permission for other people to also overcome that. Also, it's verification that you are not actually alone in the world. Because on a subconscious level, when we don't share it, what we are communicating subconsciously on a vibrational level is that no one else actually wants to help. I'm the only person in the entire universe that would actually allow someone to share with me their past mistakes and I wouldn't judge them. The rest of the world would absolutely judge me and they would walk away from me. Therefore, if I'm the only one in the world who wouldn't walk away from a person and everyone else in the world would walk away from a person, then I'm alone. I'm singled out. But I gotta believe that other people in the world genuinely care. I'm not the only one. And the only way for me to find them is for me to shine this beacon. It's the only, that's like, I gotta be the lighthouse. And this is how people start to connect, right? Like you and I would have never connected unless I started shining my own personal lighthouse of the things that I was scared about.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So I would say share it, right? Like share it publicly, and start with one person if you need to. Start by saying, maybe if you need to say it out loud in front of the mirror, right? Say it out loud in front of the mirror, just hear yourself say it. And then just know that, like, bro, if you came to me and you said, like, hey, I did some stuff when I was younger, it was the old me, and I'm now moving on. Cool. I love when people like come from like a different history. They come from a different past. Because I truly believe that people are capable of change.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I recognize that. Like I've talked to, like my girlfriend, like we've known each other since middle school. She's seen me through some of the worst times of my life, and like, I mean, I'll even just say just to you, like, in high school, I like bullied this kid. Like I really did. And like at the time, I didn't realize what I was doing. I think I was like the least aware person of all time as a teenager. Like I had horrible anxiety and I would like sweat through my clothes every day, but I had no reason why I was sweating through my clothes, but it caused me more anxiety. And it was like this loop. And then finally I had this click where I realized like what was going on. But like I just like, I feel guilt still from doing that. And especially now that I'm aware of it, it didn't affect me up until maybe like a couple years ago. And I'm like, dang, like I really treated that kid wrong. You know what I mean? And it wasn't like I beat him up or anything. It was just like telling him who he was or like what I thought of him or like, not being a positive person around what, like creating ways for other people to think of him in a positive way. And so I think for me, like I recognize like after telling my girlfriend and like she was literally in the classroom when that happened and she sees me now and she loves me more because of it, because I've done better. And I recognize that people I think will be proud of that change ultimately. But I think it's just like no one ever wants to admit who they were or the wrong things that they've done. You know what I mean? Because it hurts. It brings back that pain that like reminds you of it. So I think being able to just be honest and put it out there. And like one thing I've done is like for a couple of people I've recognized that I've wronged, like I've gone back and apologized. And now I don't worry about that anymore. You know what I mean? But we're constantly evolving. I think, sometimes we get mad, sometimes we say things we don't mean. And it's going to be like a lifelong journey. It's just like, I think I just need to start. And I think you're right. Like putting it out there is a great thing. I actually heard this story. I was like listening to, my sister sent me a podcast about like the Me Too movement.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like what really got me thinking about like why I'm scared of being honest, because people have been like confronting people about their past and making them like publicly shamed almost for it. You know what I mean? But there was this one guy who was talking about one man did something horrible, but he wrote it in a book and was public about what he did. And he never got flack for it because he addressed it. And I think you're right in the same sentiment. Whereas other people, they never addressed it. They never tried to correct their wrong, even though all he did was just put it out there. They never did that. And then they caught more flack and had to deal with, everything else. So
Yeah,
I definitely think you're right with that. And I think that's this is a great takeaway. I think probably the biggest takeaway from this call is just to like address it and just be honest and be okay with like who I am and what I've done and recognize, I think like you said, other people will be all right with it. So thank you.
absolutely. And I gotta give you props, man, for saying it and sharing it with me. And also how you made those phone calls to those other people. Because I'm sure some of those people you might have even called and they're like, oh, yeah, man, I haven't even thought about that. I didn't even like, but it's with you and it's the weight that you carry. So you've got to, it's forgiving yourself. It's not for the sake of getting the other person to say, I forgive you, but it's for you to release that weight so that you can move on, because you shouldn't be carrying around the past. If it's no longer serving you, you should let go, because right now, new people need you to do better. They need you to be better. And if you're still carrying around this useless weight that's no longer serving, how can you be the best version of yourself now for the next group of people that you come and encounter? So we don't want to rob the new people. We don't want to rob the future by continuously pouring into the past. We want to
Sure.
release the past so we can move forward.
Yeah, that's great, man. That's awesome. I have so much notes. I'm excited to go over them with my girlfriend after this and be like, yo, look at all this stuff. It's gonna be so good. My last question is just around like joining a team. Lately I feel like Pace has been really straightforward about like join a team, get involved, and that'll help kind of kickstart your growth. And I've had some conversations with some folks and met with some people about joining their team. But what I've found is like, they need somebody that can work full time, or they, want to have a ton of people on their team. And for me, I kind of like, it's not that I think that that's wrong. There's a lot of ways of doing everything. But for me, I'm kind of looking for like a smaller niche team where I can be real. Like, I want to be able to be me. Like I have been in this conversation. I don't want to have 100 other people and feel like I'm just like putting on a face, you know what I mean? And all they're seeing is like my dialing. I want to be able to be vulnerable. I want to make genuine connections, and I love relationships. And so what do you recommend on finding a team that can work with my schedule, but also allow me to be me and, give me more personal guidance than just, hey, here's a cold calling script.
Yep. So that's an interesting one, because that's a tactical question, in the sense that when it comes to formulating a team, everyone who formulates a team is going to formulate it for different reasons and at different levels. Myself, as like an operator, when I formulate a team, one of the questions I'm asking as like a vetting question is like, what's their availability? Because I want to find someone that, when it comes to like essentially like my business, in the sense of like the people I bring into it, I'm monogamous, right? It's like, yo, you come into my world, like I want you staying in my world,
Sure.
but I'm also very upfront about that, right? Like, so when I hire VAs and things of that nature, I ask them just straightforward, like, hey, are you working for anyone else? Are you doing any other jobs? Because I
Sure.
want their full focus and full attention, right? Because that's what I want. Some people are okay with the part-times and things of that nature. So I would start to identify for you, what's your superpower, right? What can you do well? And really identify like that piece, that puzzle piece that you are, where it's like, hey, you've got the sales background, and maybe you say, I'm a damn good closer, right? I'm good on the phone. Put me on the phone. I can get it across. I can push it over the fence. I'm the guy that can I'm not afraid to ask for the contract. I'm not afraid to ask for the signature. Some
Hmm.
people are terrified. Some people can build up the rapport all day, or maybe it's vice versa. Maybe it's flip side. Maybe you're like, hey, look, I kind of freeze on the contract side, but I can build the rapport and I can extract all the data for us. I can just get in there and have genuine heart-to-heart conversations with these people, and I can get them to open up to the point where they are ready to make a decision and move forward. Identifying what you can bring to an equation, and then look for people's teams, like start to ask for people who have the gap, or identify the gap that you can fill, right? Don't necessarily seek to fill a gap that you don't have an inclination towards. So if someone's like, hey, like I'm looking for an integrator, and you're like, I have no skills in integration, right?
Yeah,
Don't
that ain't me.
just to get into the team. Find like, hey, guys, I see that you're looking for this. I can fill this spot. Here's my availability. I won't always be available all these other hours. However, with this time slot, I'm sure I can hit the metrics. And if I'm not producing, then let go of me. Right. And just become someone that produces, because anyone that produces, even if they're producing on a part-time, will still be able to keep a spot. And hopefully, if you're producing, what will happen is they will say, you will both come to that conclusion of, hey, maybe we take some time back from your job and we start to pour it into this. But things will take time. And that's why in the beginning, I'm big on having a single focus. So like when people are doing multiple things, I'm like, please kill one of the things, like get rid of things and try your best to focus on just one thing. Yeah,
With
because
that, do you mean like, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. What were you saying?
you can ask.
I was just asking, like, when you say like a single focus, do you mean like a single, um, oh, like avatar? Like too many people try to do like direct to agent, direct to seller and integrator, and it's just like too much? Or do you mean like everything in your life type of thing? Like, how do you mean that?
A little bit of both, to be honest. I wish you were on this morning, the daily dial. I broke this down for about like 20 minutes, but I'm going to give you the abbreviated version, which
Mhm.
is you have to identify or recognize that things in your life require marbles of attention. So in this case, you've got your JOB, and let's say you've got a total of 20 marbles, right? And these are your marbles of attention. And your JOB currently takes up 6 marbles of attention. And then your girlfriend, she takes up, 3 marbles of attention. And then real estate takes up 5 marbles of your attention. And then you're also like, but inside of real estate, I also want to do multifamily, and that's taking up 3 marbles of attention. Then you're like, I also want to do wholesale, and that's taking up 7 marbles of attention. And you're like, I also want to do wraps, and that's taking up 2 marbles of attention. And then you're like, oh, you know what? I also want to still continue to hang out with my friends because we're in a band together. And that takes up, 3 marbles of attention. And then you've got this side project that you're doing, and that's taking up 2 marbles of attention. Then you're working on the car, and that's taking up 4 marbles of attention. And you're like, holy crap, I'm out of marbles. I'm actually in a deficit. And then
Mhm.
what occurs is in one area of your life, maybe it's your JOB, something happens and like a fire pops up. And that fire pops up in the JOB and it requires 3 marbles of attention to put out, but you're already out of marbles. So then you start to grab marbles from the multifamily and you're like, hey, I'm going to put the marbles over here on the fire to put the fire out. But because you're still trying to keep the multifamily door open, now a fire pops up over there. And so you're like, oh crap. So then you start to grab marbles from here and you put it over here and you're not willing to close any of the doors. So now these fires keep popping up and you're just constantly playing this game of moving marbles all over. So little problems start to feel large. The reason they feel large is because you don't have the literal bandwidth to handle it. Your attention, the horsepower of what you do to operate in life, the life force, right? It's not just your time, it's your attention. It's where's your energy and your attention going? You're literally out of it. So now small problems seem large because you don't have enough attention left to tackle it. Whereas if you had all your marbles and you're like, oh, it only takes 2 marbles of attention to put out, quenched, and now we're good. So when we start to get our attention back, what we start to find is big problems are actually small because I actually have the attention to take care of it. So in the beginning, and you're feeling this a little bit right now because work is currently pulling from you, if you're not getting out till 4 or 5 o'clock and you're in there all day, when you finally have time to work on your business, you're feeling like I'm drained because you spent your marbles of attention at your JOB. Your
For
JOB
sure.
is taking up 18 marbles and you only have 2 marbles left. And you're like, all right, what gets it? My personal development, my girlfriend, or like real estate?
Sure.
So it's going to be like, okay, how do I get some of my marbles of attention back? And this is a difficult thing to do. And this is where you're going to have to understand your situation well. I don't think anyone should ever go without a job. Like you got to have your basic needs met, but the basic needs need to get met to the point where you can now begin to go further and go for different things. If you know Mamadou inside of Sub 2, I love Mamadou to death. And the reason I love him is because his story, he grew up in a refugee camp, came to this country, just worked his butt off. He was driving Uber. He was driving Uber and Lyft to meet his needs. And the reason he picked Uber and Lyft was because of how flexible the schedule was. See, he wasn't trying to live comfortable off of Uber and Lyft. He was just trying to make enough money to be able to afford him time to then pour into getting on the phones. And when he got on the phones, laser focused on, I'm just going to get good at sales and acquisition. That's it. I'm just going to get good at putting properties on the contract and closing deals. So he would spend all his free time just practicing. He would watch the videos in the Zoom vault and he would just pick a line and he would just practice it over and over and over. He'd just tell one story over and over. It's the F-150 story 100 times in a row. The doctor analogy 100 times in a row. He would just repeat, and he would pick one day, and one day, no matter what, he would always find a way to put that story in every conversation he had so he can get the repetition. And even after he closed his first couple of deals, he was still continuing to drive Uber and Lyft, and he would just pull over on the side of the road, pull out his notebook, and he'd just be taking calls on the side of the road. Was it a fabulous lifestyle? Was it a glamorous lifestyle? No, but it started to lay the foundation for what is becoming his fabulous lifestyle. So it's really recognizing what sacrifice may need to be made. If you're like, hey, right now my sales job, I'm here because I'm laying a foundation of finances. I'm getting some money in that I'm able to save to build a runway for myself so I can have 6 months to then later pour into something else, while at the same time building up a skill set because they've taken care of my lead generation. Cool. That's your plan. Have a plan. Know why you're there, know why you originally started, and know what you wanted to get out of your JOB before you stay fully committed to it, before you make yourself insanely loyal to it, because you're a loyal person, right? You're a committed person. Before you get insanely loyal to it and fully married to it, understand what it is you want out of it so that when you get what you want, you can leave. People forget to do this, and they end up, again, becoming strangely loyal to the patterns that they're doing currently without even really remembering why. Does that make sense?
That's awesome. Yeah, no, that absolutely makes a ton of sense. And I haven't met is it Mamadou? Is that how you say it?
Yep.
Haven't met him, but I mean that's an amazing story. That's super cool. And I love that. I think that's like the problem I'm running into is like, like you said, just recapping with the marbles, right? Like I have 20 marbles, I'm spending 15 of them at my day job, and then I spend 3 of them on my girlfriend, and then I spend 1 on cooking, and then it's like, oh my gosh, I'm negative marbles, you know what I mean? So I definitely feel that. And then with the know what I want to get out of my JOB, like I don't think I've ever really like thought of that too much. I think obviously like I want to be doing real estate this amount of time, but I've never actually like worked backwards to be able to figure out like, okay, this is what I need out of what I'm doing to be able to get to that, right? Never actually
Yeah.
broken it down.
Yeah, you want to get intentional about that, because the last thing you should be getting out of your JOB is money. Right? Like, don't look at a job, like never look at a job for how much you can earn. That's a factor of it, but it shouldn't be the first factor. Look at your job for what it can make of you. Right? Like, that's why you get the job. It's what will this job turn me into? Because you can go and earn, like you're doing the worst trade of your life, which is you're trading your time for your money. But in the beginning, it's the trade that needs to be done. There's nothing wrong with it, right? In the beginning, when we have no resources, we get to trade our time for money. And then as we start to build up that capital, we got to have a plan. We got to be strategic about knowing where we want to go, and we can start to work backwards. So it's like you're in a commission-based position. If you're like, hey, well, I just want to build up like 20 racks, and then that gives me enough of a runway to be able to have like 6 months of living expenses covered and all that, where I cannot bring in another dollar and I'll be okay. Great. What do I need to do in my job to get to that point? Like, how much commission? How much sales do I need to do? Great. Hear me out. Turn off my focus on real estate for a minute. Stop trying to do that for a second. Turn up my focus on becoming the best salesperson in this position, because sales is a transferable skill, right? You get good at sales here, you're good at sales everywhere. The only thing that changes is the product, because sales is about energy and sales is about conviction. So let me go get great at sales here. Let me go and produce, because it's just active income. I get that active income. And if I'm so inclined that I really want to build out this real estate thing, I now have bought myself a runway to go do that. So now I can go do that. There's obviously a million other ways to get it done. Like if you wanted to go and some people will literally just say like, I'm just going to get a credit card and just, quit the job and leverage the credit card because I have that much faith in myself. It's all about personal risk assessment and risk tolerance. But being able to have some form of a plan and then committing to that plan is going to be what's needed. Just like if you invested in the stock market, they always tell you need to know when your exit, but you want to know where you're going to sell before you ever even buy it. In other words, you know what the end game looks like before you even jump in. We got to identify the end game here. And then we can start to work our way backwards from that end game. And you might say, well, you know what? This is what I prefer. This is what I would idealistically like. I would like to have 6 months of, runway. So I'm going to go in. It'll take me, 3 months in my sales position, 4 months in my sales position to create that sort of runway. So I'm going to be all in. I'm just going to show up to work, bang, bang, bang. I'm going to prove to myself, I'm going to do a test that the way I show up for this JOB, it's also going to be the way I show up for myself when I'm a business owner, because the type of employee you are will be the sort of employee you attract. The sort of people you attract to your team will be the type that you are in someone else's team. So you can start to work on that project for yourself. And then when you get to that place, great, make the transfer and start to build your own thing. And while you're inside the business, do your best now to pour into that business while you're there, knowing that you've already planned your escape. You already know when you're going to leave. So now that you know, hey, July 3rd, I'm leaving, until July 3rd, until that day, I'm going to grow this thing as big and as powerful, and I'm going to be a contributor as much as I possibly can. And I'm going to learn as much, and I'm going to pour into this just as much as if it were mine. Because later on, when I get an employee, I want them to do that for me. That while they're there, they're here. Does that make sense?
That's awesome. Yeah, no, that absolutely makes 110% sense. I think I've recognized that, I told myself okay, I would like to do, 3 deals by September. So I know I have the confidence to quit my job, because I could quit my job right now, but it's I don't have that confidence in myself yet to be able to actually go out and do it, and feel comfortable quitting, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I I want to hustle on the side to where I can get these deals. I know I can do it. So when I quit, I know it's not a learning curve, right? It's just go.
Yep.
And
Confidence, you're going to find confidence doesn't come from getting deals. Confidence comes from honoring your promises that you make to yourself. So whatever promises you make to yourself, honor those promises, and that's where confidence comes from. So now that you've been given a new definition of confidence, going forward from this point on, promises you make to yourself from today going forward, you need to commit to. So I'm wiping away every promise you've made up until this point, and now you've been given a blank slate. So if you want to pick back up some of the old promises you made, awesome, more power to you. Just commit to whatever promises you make to yourself. This is how you start to build confidence, because now you believe everything you say.
yeah, that's amazing. I think I thought I had written down a question just around integrity. And I say oftentimes, not even oftentimes, I fall into this trap of saying I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do this, and then I don't actually do it. And it weighs on me even more to where I'm dang, now I don't want to tell myself I'm going to do stuff, because I know I haven't been following through with what I've told myself I'm going to do. And then also other people see it, what I mean? I'll tell my girlfriend I'm going to do something, and then I don't do it. And she's she might not say anything, but I know in her head, she's dang, you didn't do that. Right. So it's a strike, if you wish. Yep. So I like the way you put that. And I think, yeah, giving myself, number one, the forgiveness of everything that's came before me and the bad decisions I've made, but also giving myself the forgiveness of hey, you didn't follow through on these things, but like you said, I have a blank slate. I can start today, and that's what matters. Yep. None of what I promised myself last year even matters. Just do it today. So I like that, and I appreciate that.
Yep, you've been given a new definition and a new perspective. So now you know what you didn't know. Therefore, we can move forward. This is your New Testament, if you will. Right? It's all right, hey, let's reset this. Right. So
absolutely.
I hope that helps.
Dude, this has been probably one of the most beneficial meetings I've ever had in my life. And I appreciate it a lot. I'm excited to we have 4 minutes here. If it's all right with you, I'd like to make some action items moving forward, so I can call you in a few months or see you on the daily dial or whatever and say, hey, don't worry, I'm still doing it. You know what I mean? I
100%.
want you to see it. I want you to see it because I know I can do it. And I know that'd help you feel good about what you're doing here because it's a lot of value. And I'm sure it probably sucks when people sit on the call like this and say they're going to do something or they say they're going to change and they don't actually do it. So I want to do that not only for me, but for you too.
I appreciate that. I love it.
So I think from kind of what we've talked about in your eyes, what would you say are like the three biggest action items moving forward? We've talked about a lot, so
Yep.
I
So
want to try to prioritize here.
yep, biggest action items would be number one, getting crystal clear on what it is you want to create, right? Like getting clear on your personal end goal. Right. So like, and I'm talking like detailed, you probably have journaled about this. So maybe even go back through some of your journal entries and seeing like, hey, what is it that I actually want? What is it that I actually desire? What sort of lifestyle do I want? What sort of health do I want? Relationships, sort of money that I want to earn. How do I want to earn that money? All of it, get clear on it. Then when you're clear on that end picture, start to ask yourself, what skills do I need to acquire in order to make that picture a reality? Like what skills does that future version of me have that the current version of me doesn't have? That if I go and acquire those skills, there is no way, there's no reality that exists with me possessing those skills that I don't produce this life. And then once you identify those skills or capabilities, begin to say, okay, which one am I going to focus on first? And then focus on the acquisition of that one particular skill at a time. Think Kobe Bryant, when he was getting his basketball career started, and he recognized, hey, I got to be able to dribble with my left hand. So what did he do? He just dribbled with his left hand. He was willing to lose games just so he can learn how to dribble with his left hand because he was in a marathon, not a sprint. And then after that, he realized, hey, I got to learn free throws. Now I got to learn 3-pointers. Now I got to learn this. Like he took one thing at a time, and then over the years, it stacked and it built. But because he was focused on just one thing at a time, he was able to learn those things faster than everyone else because he was only focused on one thing. Compounding, just compounding. So for yourself, identify what they are and come back and start to learn those skills. And then start to look at what your current resources are. So this might be your JOB, and figure out how to use, because all you have is all you need. Everything you have right now is exactly what you need. You don't need anything more than what you currently have in the sense of resources. It's now going to become more resourceful and look at your current situation. And if you said, for example, hey, I need to get better at sales, awesome. You work in a position where leads are being funneled to you all day long, right? So it's like, hey, I'm practicing the Sandler method. I'm just leveraging the Sandler method all day long on these phone calls, just getting my reps in, screwing up on someone else's dime.
Sure.
That's what it is. I mean, like that's
I mean,
why
that is a good point. I never thought of it that way. Yeah.
it's the great. When I was getting started, I went and picked up a job at LA Fitness selling gym memberships because I never had sales experience, and I was like, I need to learn how to sell. I just need a place to go talk to a bunch of different people. So that's what I wanted out of that job. I didn't care when they were telling me how much I'd get paid. I don't even remember how much I got paid. I wasn't listening because I was just there for the experience. I was there for the opportunity. I was there for the exposure to people. That's what I needed.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I say, look at the job for what you can get from it. Look at the job for what you can become from it.
Sure.
So that would be what I would say to start with, like as action items. And then of course, obviously putting it to work, just now going to work on it day to day and building a tribe around you, building your accountability people around you. If you can't find those people, you're more than welcome to connect in with like the group that I put together with MMC, right? Or connect with the people inside like my high performance coaching, connect with those people as well. But find people that you resonate with, that you're like, hey, this is gonna be my squad. This is my tribe. And these are gonna be the people I march forth with.
Absolutely. Dude, this has been amazing. I've appreciated every single second, and I'm like reinvigorated and re-energized. So thank you a lot for this.
Dude, I'm happy to hear that. Cody, I'm glad that you jumped on, man. I'm glad that you're on time. I love the questions. and I see the focus in your eyes and I see the desire to get better. So I think you're going to be doing well. It's going to be just staying consistent, staying persistent, and just making sure you stay plugged in. Don't try and do it alone. Like connect with, just like how you did today, connect with people, connect with me, connect with people that you resonate with, and keep the journey going.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate all of your insight, all your like very specific and guided knowledge. It wasn't just like, hey, do these and you'll feel good. Like you really applied it to my situation, which I think is often overlooked. Appreciate that. And I look forward to seeing you on those morning calls, man. It's gonna be good.
Awesome, bro. Well, Cody, I appreciate you, man. If you need anything ever, reach out, like shoot me a DM on IG or shoot me a message on Facebook. And I would love to stay connected. Like keep me up to date. Like if you make posts on like IG, like tag me in it. I want to see what's going on.
I absolutely will. I'll definitely keep you in touch. Thanks, Marlon.
All right. Take
All
care,
right.
brother.
See you, man.
So guys, that was Cody. That was super fun. I am now going to take a 10-minute nap because your boy needs sleep, but I love connecting with people. So guys, if you don't know, now you know. This is how we help people. I love doing the how can I help. If you're interested in joining into the group that I told Cody about, you can go to joinmmc.com. Just type joinmmc.com. The link is also probably down there below. And if you're interested in doing any high performance coaching with me, that is by application only. So go to my Instagram. There should be actually just go to my Instagram and DM me the word coach. I don't even think I have links anywhere because it's all word of mouth, or it's from people just finding out from being on my YouTubes and things of that nature. So if you're interested in doing that, go to my Instagram and DM me the word coach, or just comment the word coach on this YouTube video. All right. On